Joining us next is the CEO of a company whose market cap is nearing $200 billion. Oracle's technology is used by companies around the world, from startups to large enterprises spanning every industry. Here to share his unparalleled global perspective, please welcome in conversation with Aditi Roy of CNBC, Oracle CEO Mark Hurd.
Thanks so much for being here today.
No, thanks. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, looks like a great crowd. I want to start by talking to you about the state of the industry, how tech has changed over the years. Back in the day, the biggest tech companies were
Your day might be different than my day. I don't know.
You wouldn't be surprised. The biggest tech companies back in the day, though, used to be enterprise companies, IBM, HP, Oracle. Nowadays, the biggest, most buzzwordy tech companies, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Alphabet, are consumer-facing ones. When did that change occur, and what does that say about the state of enterprise?
That's a complicated question, I think. If you went back to what I would define as the days, which would be probably in the mid to late 80s, there was one company that really dominated IT. IT was primarily IT for business, and that was dominated by one company. That was IBM. They technically led in really everything: microprocessors, operating systems, databases, virtually you name it, they led technically. And everything was sort of vertically optimized by them. They were actually, there wasn't even a thing called systems integrators then. It was just them. And then somewhere in that late 80s, 90s, the Silicon Valley really emerged and disintermediated and frankly beat IBM at every single layer of the stack. And then customers have, frankly, spent the last 25 years procuring to their advantage from all those various companies in the valley. That's sort of the good news of the evolution of it. I think the problem with it has been the fact that so many of these systems now in these companies are so disparate, so heterogeneous. They're really hard to upgrade. They're really hard to modernize. Frankly, they're really hard to secure. And that's a lot of what you hear in the industry right now. How do I sort of almost in a way go back to simple from where I've gotten to over the last 20, 25 years.
Let's talk about the cloud a little bit.
Sure.
Cloud business is competitive. Getting customers to sign on to a platform can be expensive. What's your customer acquisition strategy, especially in an age where it seems like everyone's talking about AWS?
Well, first, I think cloud is an overused term. It's you know, again, I think us in the Valley invent a word every few years that's going to solve all your problems. You know, cloud was that word several years ago. I think the cloud you have to break it down and unpack it into several pieces. There's an application layer in the cloud. There's a platform layer in the cloud. There's infrastructure in the cloud. I think for the case of Oracle, we're very active in the application layer, very active in the tech layer, and active in the infrastructure layer. And there are various players involved at different pieces. I do think the bigger part of this movement to the cloud, which I think, by the way, is an irresistible movement, is driven by the fact that customers can't afford to keep spending the money they're spending. The IT staffs have gotten too big, too bulky, frankly, not even in some ways adding as much value as these companies need. So they got to go back to simple, they got to go back to easy, they got to go back to getting their environments to cost, frankly, less with more modernization and, frankly, with better security. And that's what's driving all this movement to the cloud.
Let's talk a little bit about, you have $70 billion in cash. It's a nice problem to have,
You
right?
could repeat that number?
Sure, $70 billion in
70
cash.
billion.
I believe it's a $50 billion in
Yep.
cash and then 20 in the marketable securities. You can buy a suite of companies with that. What do you look for when you're looking to acquire a company?
Well, we don't go out of our way to spend the money. You know, it's actually not. It's our shareholders' money. And so when we think about our capital strategy, obviously we think about dividends and we think about buying our stock back, which we think is a very attractive buy right now. But when we think about M&A, you know, our thing is to go through three filters. One, we don't buy anything that doesn't strategically fit with where we want to go 5, 10 years from now. Secondly, it's got to financially make sense, meaning we're not going to, frankly, overpay for something that doesn't make sense. And then third, we have to run it. We have to be able to run it effectively once we buy it. So those are the three filters, and we're looking for next generation companies. They're going to be part of what's going to happen 5 years from now, 10 years from now, not companies that we're were frankly relevant 5, 6 years ago. So our strategy has really been to move forward towards the very areas we just talked about, areas in platform, areas in applications. They're going to be part of the next generation of solutions.
Another big buzzword in the Valley, AI. How do you have incorporated artificial intelligence into your strategy, and what's the state of AI in your opinion right now?
I think it's another overused term that everybody wants to put AI into their company's taxonomy so they can get their multiple up or get their value up. AI to me is going to turn out to be less of a solution and more of a feature that's integrated deeply into the solutions, like applications. I mean, I think you're going to see HR applications. Let me give you an example. When you recruit people today, we recruit 2,000 kids from college per year. And the work to do that, it's very, very hard. And it's all done basically manually. Our ability now to use machine-to-machine learning and AI algorithms to determine, even where to source people. We can source people literally through social media now. We can do it through the integration of AI into our recruiting process. We can now interview on campus and give at least a reasonable view of the likelihood of your success at Oracle based on your background, how you interview, and also maybe even prescribe a specific training program for you. Frankly, we could never have done this before. Now, I just gave you one use case. I can give you hundreds of these use cases of the integration of AI discreetly into applications themselves.
You seem pretty bullish on it.
No, I think it's an irresistible force. I'm not as bullish on somebody saying, I have an AI solution in the cloud, come to me. I don't think that's how this works. I think that the ability, whether you call it pattern matching or machine learning or AI, the ability to integrate it directly into use cases. I mean, most people, when they call a call center, whether you know it or not, the call center is desperately trying to get information on you as fast as it possibly can to deal with you for those few points of intersection when they can make a difference in the relationship. And the opportunity for the human who's dealing with you at the time to do that is very difficult. The opportunity for the computer to do that work for you in relatively no time at all is an amazing differentiator in now what I can do to change a relationship. And so to integrate this into marketing applications, sales applications, HR applications, financial reporting applications, and I think of it, of course, through a B2B lens, but the opportunity is just gargantuan for a change in the way that we do these work cases.
Sure. So it's about being tactical and smart about applying that technology to the right use cases.
Yeah, the world is made up. Listen, all of us that run businesses, we have to make thousands and tens of thousands of decisions, and most of the time, we have to do them quickly. And the key always is, who's got the best information to make the best possible decision at that discrete moment in time when that decision can make a difference for your enterprise, either with your customer, your supplier, whatever it may be. AI is a way to dramatically change the dynamics about that decision making.
There are a lot of smart and talented engineers in the audience. Let's talk about recruitment. How are you attracting the top software engineers in the country and convincing them to come to Oracle as opposed to going to, let's say, a Facebook or an Airbnb or an up-and-coming startup?
Well, it's competitive. I mean, there are a lot of issues to that question. I mean, first, there aren't as many engineers coming out of particularly U.S. schools today as we could use. And we'd certainly even, I mean, if you looked at U.S. universities, there are quite a number of engineers who come from outside the country to train in the United States who, to be very blunt with you, we'd like to keep in the United States and give them jobs and give them an opportunity to earn money and raise families and maybe even start companies here in the United States. So we'd love to see a bigger pool of candidates to recruit from. Those that we can recruit, we recruit because we think you've got an amazing opportunity to change the world. I think this movement from the traditional IT environment you think of today to what's going to be the new world in B2B is going to be made up of, to be very blunt, a handful of companies that have to have intellectual property, have to have capital. You mentioned how much capital we have. We think we have great IP, so we're one of those few companies that can make an incredible difference. And so we do a lot of things, we think, to not only recruit, but then to develop and train and hopefully give that I mean, 40%, over 40% of our company is now millennials.
Yeah.
And so, you know, our hope is to, you know, and I always love the thing that millennials want to change jobs every 3 years. And that's somehow a new idea. And in fact, our data says we survey our people, they want to change every 2.7 years. If I went back through my career, which I don't want to tell you how long it's been, I've changed jobs that often. And the only thing, I didn't do it with 50 companies, I did it with 3 companies. And so I think our job is to be able to provide those sorts of opportunities for people over the course of a career. So for us, it's an entire life cycle of an employee engagement that we think is very attractive.
And speaking of that recruitment piece and home growing your own talent, you recently opened up a new campus in Austin. Why Austin?
It wasn't just about Austin. I mean, so for those of you who don't know, we built a big campus in Austin, which we obviously are based in Redwood Shores, but we have 3 hubs like that. One is in Santa Monica, California, one is in Austin, and one is in Boston. And what we do is we hub a lot of our people, hubbing them in, and I think that's the way you're going to see the evolution of selling and demonstrations of technology and you know, all of how this works today will become more hub-based, and that's because the internet and the network now changes the way we engage with customers. And so this was, you know, our strategy when we recruit from college, by the way, is to hire the best young people, put them in the absolute newest, best facilities with the best training, giving them the best tools and hopefully the best management, and it's all part of that strategy.
And they live on the campus, too.
It's interesting. It's a good point. We bought a 60, 70 acre plot, and on it are actually apartments. And so, yeah, we give people opportunity to live on campus if they so choose.
I read that you and Larry Ellison actually went down to Austin yourselves to check out real estate. What was that like?
You know, Larry Ellison, this is a true story. I was going down to Austin to do just what you said, and Larry said, you're going to Austin to buy property? I said, yeah. He goes, can I go? And I didn't think it would be a good idea to say no. So I said, sure.
Wait, so you kept him you tried to keep him from coming?
No. It was great to have. So we got there. I'll tell you a true story. We actually, if anybody's been to Austin, there's a river that goes right through the city. And we were looking at properties right on the other side of the river. And I went to one, not the one we bought, but another one. And I got over there, and we had a real estate agent. So if you can imagine, you got the CEO of Oracle, and you've got Larry Ellison, the CTO, chairman, founder of Oracle, and we're walking, looking at properties, and I can tell this building's not going to be big enough. So there's one right next to it, apartment building, and I say to the real estate agent, how much would that apartment building cost in addition to this? And the real estate agent turns to me and looks at me and goes, in dollars? I was like, no, Turkish lira. I'll do the conversion. But no, yeah. So we actually went down the river because we didn't want like that one. We went to that one. We bought it on the spot.
On the spot.
On the spot. And 2 years later, we have this new facility.
Pretty amazing. And there's a customized Starbucks there.
Customized Starbucks. Gotta have that.
We know you're a person who knows how to run a company. You've been CEO at 3 major companies. At HP, you're currently CEO at Oracle. What's one lesson in leadership that you can give to our audience today?
Well, I mean, I don't know. These days it's very different from when I started the business. I don't know how many people, want to interview with people like you and CNBC and do what all you have to do today when you're a CEO of a big public company. It's different than it was. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just different. The advice I would always give to people when I talk at universities that want to be CEOs is, as hard as it is to say this, is don't rush. Because when you get in the chair, nobody, particularly people in your line of work, and in addition to that, investors, the patience level now is lower than ever. The tolerance for failure is lower than ever. And once you're in the job, if that job gets on top of you before you get on top of it, you really can't recover. So my advice would be take your time, learn as much as you can about every function of the business and the companies as you can. Do as many of the roles as you can so that when you finally do get in the seat, you're going to find out it's a lonely place to be. It's really lonely. Nobody's ever really completely open with you. I'm in a blessed situation. I have Safra Katz with me. I have Larry with me. And so we have a unique situation. In most cases, you don't have that. It's you. It's you. So the better prepared you can be, the better chance you get. And when you rush to get there, By the way, if you don't know this stat, 40% of CEOs today don't make it 18 months. Don't make it 18 months. The average life cycle for a CEO is about 18 quarters. That's the average. So,
and what's the reason behind that, do you think?
I think it's so many people rush into the job, they get promoted ahead of time, and there's such a desire there's such a dynamism now to change and to move. And I don't know whether that's good or bad. I mean, we're so hooked on these quarters, we're so hooked on short-term performance, the tolerance for building a business, for generational performance of companies isn't what it was many, many years ago. And so I don't think this is good. I think it's hard to move forward when you have constant change and continuity. But I think preparing people to be in these jobs is the best thing you can possibly do.
It's one challenge. I mean, you mentioned you have Safra, you have Larry, but for most CEOs, is sometimes a challenge the fact that you're surrounding yourself with just yes people who, it's hard to find that one person who's going to dare to be the skeptic or to dare to question.
I don't think it's only that. I think that there are many CEOs that have been advised, I think ill-advised, but don't surround yourself with anybody who can replace you. Because if you do, you might get replaced. And I would actually tell you that if you can get yourself surrounded with the best people, you've got a much better chance of winning than the alternative. But I don't think that is just because you have yes people. I think there is some who subscribe to the fact that it isn't always great to have people that are there trying to get your job. And so again, I think there's a lot of dynamics to your question about what makes the opportunity to have success as a CEO and longevity as a CEO.
And speaking of, I want to end on, we have just a couple minutes left, on a light note. You played tennis in college, which I didn't know. And that's actually transferred into your professional life as well. You work with tennis pros and a lot of leadership mentorship. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that informs you?
Well, I mean, the problem I have now is that I'm too old to be competitive. So, if I go out and play, I can still play at a high level, but now for only about 15 minutes. And then it just, declines. So, but I love the sport. It's a great sport, and we're active. Oracle, Larry Ellison's active in the sport. We Oracle are active in the sport, and one of the reasons I like this sport is I think that so many people in that sport do great things typically, in the business world, and so we tend to recruit from the sport as well.
What does the world of sports teach us about leadership?
Well, listen, I mean, I think the nice thing about some of those sports, like the one we're mentioning, particularly in tennis, is you're really out there by yourself. It's a little bit like we talked about being a CEO. When you're on the court, you can't call timeout, you can't get a substitute, nobody can say, listen, I don't feel great this second, could you come hit a few for me? It doesn't work that way, and that's why you see the ebbs and flows, through matches the way you do, and so it's a space where you have to go out every day, rain or shine. Well, I guess mostly if you're indoors, it could be rain, and you got to perform, and so very similar to what we have to do in the business world.
Great chat, Mark Hurd. Thanks so much for joining us.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you.